Hey everybody, it's John Pollock alongside Cody Saftik. Coming up this weekend in Sacramento, California, it's going to be Sage Northcutt meeting Mickey Gall. Of course, Mickey Gall is coming off his victory over CM Punk at UFC 203 back in September, and I had the chance to speak with Mickey Gall earlier this week. Coming out of all of the attention he received ahead of that CM Punk fight and deciding to fight Sage Northcutt next.
I'm happy to move on, but that was a great opportunity. It was worth the wait. There's a reason why they were calling it the golden ticket, the CM Punk lottery. It was a good fight, man. For any MMA fighter, to go against that guy, it's going to be a good matchup for the MMA fighter. The seasoned MMA fighter. So, it was worth the wait, and I'm very happy to move on and now fight the UFC caliber guys. Not to be disrespectful by any means, but like this kid Sage Northcutt, he's a legit UFC guy, and now that gets me more excited. CM Punk was great for giving me exposure. As I say, a lot of great MMA fighters. My buddies Sean Rock Santella, Andy Main, fighters stay in obscurity, and certain guys should be here, but don't get the shot for whatever reason. And I've been very fortunate that I've gotten the shot, and now I get to do what I'm passionate about, and that's beat great fighters. There's definitely a value. He'll make pay-per-view buys. He'll bring over attention. He will bring the wrestling fan base that he's acquired over the time. So I totally get it from a business move. For a legitimacy of the sport, it doesn't help much. But I'm sure if they do it, there's a reason for it. And if the guy wants to do it, hats off to him for wanting to come back. If I'm being honest, I think he'll probably get dealt the same way that I did him.
All right, that was Mickey Gall discussing CM Punk and whether or not he will continue his journey in the UFC. But certainly that was the fight where a lot of people were introduced to Mickey Gall, Cody. And this was someone where we knew that the UFC was going to be finding someone that probably not a whole lot of people were aware of at the start. And Mickey Gall, what I think was really intriguing throughout this whole thing was him utilizing his mic time, utilizing the time when he got that spotlight so that when he got this win off of CM Punk, it wasn't going to be suddenly, the story of UFC 203 was CM Punk lost. Instead, Mickey Gall called a shot. He wanted this fight with Sage Northcutt. I think he's been very strategic in how he's been able to use this spotlight and extend it.
Well, look at how many other young fighters in his position are not co-headlining a UFC Fight Night card. There's a lot of people who have that mic time, John. They just don't utilize it properly. This guy's got 3 wins in his professional career. Those 3 opponents combined for an 0-3 record. They were all debuting fighters, yet he's been able to make that interest for himself, grow that interest. And he makes such a great point in that clip. I train with guys like Andy Main and Sean Santella, who don't get the credit that they deserve. Sean Santella is one of the best flyweights out there right now, unsigned. Andy Main's 7-1 since his tough stint, unsigned. People can learn from something with Mickey Gall, because whether you think he's got the skills to back it up, there is that interest, and he's doing a fantastic job for himself in bringing in that public, bringing in that intrigue, and giving himself credible fights.
And it's an important part of this game that I know a lot of fighters, they're not comfortable with, and that's fine. But to me, I look at it that it's much like for athletes in the NBA, in the NHL, when they land endorsement deals, a lot of that, it's not just because you're a 50-goal scorer that you're going to land these opportunities that others are afforded. Your personality is a big part of it. When John Anik asks you, what's next for you? Do you have any name that you would like to look at next for your fight? There's going to be a lot of guys who just say, whoever the UFC puts in front of me, and that's fine if you want to choose that. Mickey Gall's gone the alternate path, and you can look at where he's progressed. He goes from a pay-per-view where he was CM Punk's opponent to many people, and now he's got his own following, and he's on the main card of Fox, whereas Brian Barberena is on the prelims, and nobody's talking about him, a guy who's beaten Sage Northcutt and hasn't, in my opinion, capitalized on that momentum.
Well, you see a lot of the time, too, post-fight, that if there's, depending on time constraints, they'll be like, okay, we can go to a post-fight or we can't go to post-fight. Not every guy gets that post-fight. But if you're known as someone who's going to take that opportunity, take that mic, take that liberty, and say, this is who I want next, you don't have to be disrespectful. You don't have to be Conor McGregor. You don't have to say, I'm going to smoke out everybody in this division. But you do have to say something.
Give me a reason to want to see you fight.
Yes. Yes, and so far in his career, if it was just like, okay, I'm 1-0 professionally, who's the only guy I could likely beat in the UFC? CM Punk. Well, then I'm going to say that, and he gets CM Punk. Now it's like, okay, I'm 2 in the UFC. Well, who could I conceivably beat right now? Oh, Sage Northcutt. So I'm going to say that too. And you know what? He did it. He's matchmaking his own fights.
And he told me in the interview, he's got a name for when he wins this fight as well.
Great. He shouldn't be overlooking Sage, but good for him.
So let's talk about the actual fight, because, I mean, as he stated, he believes this is the first UFC caliber fighter that he's meeting after Mike Jackson and Phil Brooks. It's an interesting fight. It's Sage Northcutt's return to welterweight. This is also a fight where Mickey Gall spent 3 weeks training at TriStar, in addition to where he trains at Gracie, New Jersey. Sage Northcutt, he's also moved around into Dallas as well. So there's some interesting questions for Sage Northcutt going into this fight, but also a lot on Mickey Gall, because now we're seeing him against a higher level of opposition than we've seen in the octagon.
And I think that's what it comes down to. A lot of the times when you're not debuting, but when you have that name, you have that reputation, you have that interest, it's easy for the public to get behind you. If you look at Sage Northcutt, he was a 4.5 to 1 favorite over Francisco Trevino in his UFC debut. Trevino was 12-1, had a winning record inside the UFC, was 33 years old and missed weight by 5 pounds. But that's how certain people were that he was going to win. He was a 9-1 favorite over Cody Pfister, 3.5 to 1 over Brian Barberena, 3.5 the last time over Enrique. Every single time this man steps in, it's, oh my God, he's the big favorite. Now he gets Gall, and Gall, I think, is kind of the flavor of the week. Gall is the guy now that people are like, oh, forget Sage Northcutt. We got this young kid, Mickey Gall. He's talented. He's obviously a credible brown belt under David Adiv. He's a guy that's gone the distance with Gordon Ryan in the Naga Championship. So he's a talented guy. And guess what? The things that he does well are the things that Sage does poorly, which is the ground game. And as well, he's an actual welterweight, and Sage is moving up. So there is intrigue, there is question marks, but I would have to say that Sage Northcutt is more battle-tested. He has more experience. And his last time out, people are going to say, well, you know what? Against Enrique Marin, not a great fight. It was the first time that Sage had ever been the distance in his career. So I think he's developing, he's learning new tricks, whereas Mickey Gall hasn't fought in anybody who had ever even won a fight before. So there's levels to this, and Sage is operating at the higher level right now.
I think Mickey Gall feels, I mean, his striking is very underrated, but certainly you have to look at his ground game. And thus far, Sage Northcutt, he's shown an ability when he gets placed on his back, it's bad times for Sage Northcutt. But in the striking department, I think this is very interesting as well, because Mickey Gall believes he's not been able to showcase that side of his game yet as well. And with Sage Northcutt as well, I think you look at a lot of those odds, I think it's all in perspective at looking at him. I don't think this is someone that, at 20 years old, I mean, you look at some of those odds, he was challenged in all of those fights you listed off, whether it was Cody Pfister, where he had some trouble early on, Brian Barberena, obviously, and Enrique Marin. I think it's just looking at him in perspective, where sometimes we tend to just jump the gun on somebody and expect the world for someone who is 20 years old, which is amazing.
Well, it is amazing, and also if you look at that skill development, is that he's getting those extra rounds in. Yes, he hasn't looked particularly good over guys like Cody Pfister, absolutely, but you get to see, well, what's he going to do when he gets taken down? Is he going to be able to get back up? Is he going to be able to persevere? With Mickey Gall, we've never seen Mickey Gall get out of the first round. We don't know with Mickey Gall. It's a pint-sized portion. So as you mentioned, he's saying his striking is very good, but we don't know. In his MMA debut on Looking for a Fight, when they found him at Dead to Rights MMA, I believe, his striking didn't look particularly good at all. In the fight against Mike Jackson, he drops him, he crosses his feet to try to throw that right hand. Striking does not look good at all. Sage Northcutt's a guy that's been striking since he was 5 years old, his entire life. So I would find it astonishing that Mickey Gall goes in there and beats him in the striking department. Now, what we have seen with Sage Northcutt is the longer you take him into rounds, the worse you can get him. Brian Barberena, Sage Northcutt wins that first round against Brian Barberena. He's looking good, but then in the second round, we start to see the flaws in him. We don't know that Mickey Gall can even go a second or third round because we've never seen it. So there's just a lot of question marks. It's going to be a good fight. There's a lot of intrigue. I think people are excited. The fact that it's placed higher on the card than Uriah Faber, I think says something. And I wish him nothing but the best. But I am kind of leaning towards Sage Northcutt in this spot.
All right, well, we're going to find out. It's a very intriguing main card in Sacramento on Saturday night, and it will feature welterweight Sage Northcutt and Mickey Gall.